So Ubisoft and Tencent made a very interesting decision last night. If you didn't know, Ubisoft has decided to create an entirely new subsidiary, an entirely new company that will be within Ubisoft, but that's a little hard to explain. So the information on this is very, very slim, very, very limited. We actually don't know much ourselves, but what we do know is Ubisoft has created an entirely new company that will focus on its major franchises, Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, and Tom Clancy's. So this new subsidiary, this new pretty much entity Ubisoft will move all ownership of major franchises and some of their biggest studios, being, I believe, Ubisoft Montreal and a couple others, over to this new subsidiary. And then with this new subsidiary, so that's pretty much what they're doing. They're moving their major franchises, their major studios over to this new subsidiary, the ownership of those to the new subsidiary, and that's that. Ubisoft, there's actually more information here. Ubisoft will retain 75% control over the company, or 75% ownership over the company, so Ubisoft will own most of it still, pretty much to retain creative control, so that, the other investor, aka Tencent, which we'll get into in a second, can't we want this done with Assassin's Creed. We want a Chinese Assassin's Creed game, and we want them to, Chinese things. Make it look like our great leader Winnie the Pooh. Didn't mean it. It was around for 10,000 years and is better than everyone else. Like shit like that. You know what I mean? It's to make sure that doesn't happen. You know what I mean? That won't happen, but it's a joke. It's not, no. Getting into the Tencent part of it, Tencent's actually invested 25% into the company. So the company's valued at $4.5 billion. Tencent's own is pretty much a 1/4 owner, so they own 25% of the company. They've bought it for $1.1 billion. Pretty interesting. Apparently, the main reason they did it was a strategic move to survive, grow the company, and compete better with Tencent's massive cash inject. Kind of random, but whatever. It was actually mentioned by this guy that pretty much means Ubisoft is not looking to sell at the company as a whole, but instead has partnered with Tencent to stay afloat and support all their major studios. So that was said by Synth Potato on Twitter, content creator. So that was said by him. That part was said by him. But no, shut up, Ethan. That's not important. But what you do need to know is that's all you need to know. That's all the information you need to know. Now we're going to know why Ubisoft's doing this. So you got the information, you understand the information. Now, here's why Ubisoft's doing this. Why Ubisoft's doing this is one very simple reason, and it's this. I'm going to break this down really well. Insanely well. Ubisoft is a ship. Get it? Okay. Ubisoft's a ship. Tencent is a ship. Actually, scrap that. Ubisoft's a ship, but Ubisoft's a sinking ship. A ship with heaps of holes in it that's half on fire. That's Ubisoft. Now, Ubisoft, to not be a burning ship, needs another ship, Tencent, to invest into them. They need the money. But Tencent's going, why would we invest into a ship that's sinking? And Ubisoft goes, that's a great question. So we've established that. Why would Tencent pretty much invest into a sinking ship? So what does Ubisoft do? They grab the best parts and the remaining good parts, the most valuable parts of their sinking ship, go off, create a whole new ship with all of the parts or the best parts of their sinking ship, aka Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, Tom Clancy's, Just Dance, and then their major studios like Ubisoft Montreal, create that new ship and go, hey, Tencent, can you invest into this new ship? And Tencent goes, well, you did create a new ship with all the best parts of your sinking ship, so yes, we'll invest into this new ship that's not sinking. And that's what's happened. Ubisoft needed someone to invest. They needed someone to invest a lot of money, $1 billion. And Ubisoft has decided they were never going to get Tencent to acquire or more specifically invest into their sinking ship. So Tencent or Ubisoft's decided to create a whole new ship Tencent can invest into, and Ubisoft will retain most control over it. It was pretty much a way so that Tencent's happy, Tencent gets money. Tencent gets a huge acquisition or pretty much huge ownership into their major franchises and major studios. So then Tencent's happy that they're not investing into a sinking ship, and that they get pretty much a ownership of their major franchises and major studios. Ubisoft's happy because now they have $1.1 billion to play around with, and more money that Tencent will most likely invest over time. So Tencent will most likely invest more money over time, spending more money, maybe even in the future, funding certain projects or helping fund certain projects. That's actually another thing that was also mentioned, that apparently this acquisition or this Tencent injection will also be helping with the funding of major games like a new Assassin's Creed title or a new Far Cry title. So let's say a new Far Cry title is going to cost $300 million. Tencent doesn't have that money, and Ubisoft doesn't have that money. So they go, hey, Tencent, can you, since you own 1/4 of the company, can you like invest into this new project we're making or this new game, and pretty much put money into this new game? And Tencent will go, yeah, here's $150 million. And then immediately $150 million out of that $300 million budget has been pretty much, paid for by Tencent. So yeah, that's what's happening here. Tencent gets ownership of their major franchises, or 1/10 ownership of their major franchises and their major game studios. And in return, pretty much they fund a certain amount of their projects, and Ubisoft gets a large amount of money. Bam! Really well done. Thank you. Pat me on the back. Oh, thanks for the pat on the back. That was maybe the best way I could explain that. I know it's still fairly butchered, but that was probably the best way I could explain that in monkey terms, because I'm kind of a monkey. I'm kind of a chimp sometimes. I'm not too great with the whole speaking. So then we go into another thing. This is actually a little bit of a fun fact. This was mentioned by William. Mr. William. I like William. He's on Twitter. He does really great breakdowns. William R. Angile. His name will be up on screen. His ad will be up on screen. This guy's great, but he actually mentioned this on Twitter. So let me read through exactly what he said when it came to his statement about what Ubisoft's doing. We all saw this coming from a mile away, but it is extremely concerning to see while Ubisoft is a French-owned company, Tom Clancy was a prolific American writer where stories that inspired so many video games also focused on American/Western freedom fighting against the trend and terror of terrorism, fascism, and communism. The current realignment of Tencent having so much control over these iconic IPs raises massive concern about censorship and propaganda spiked in a direction that goes against everything Tom Clancy's stories and games stood for. So Tom Clancy's been a writer for a very long time. He was a writer, big American writer. He pretty much wrote about going against communism and fascism. And not unless you've been living under a rock, China's a communist country. So it's possible Tencent goes, and Tencent being a Chinese company, Tencent could go, hey, you're making a Tom Clancy game. We're investing money. We're pretty much investing $100 million into that game because we're helping with the budget of that game. We don't want that to go against, communism. That, it has to be pro-communism, or it can't mention anything bad about communism. That's the concern he's pretty much mentioning is. But yeah, that's pretty much the concern he's mentioning, mainly being, there could be censorship in that sort of way. So long story short, biggest breakdown I can give is Ubisoft still has creative control, meaning Ubisoft has the final say, but Tencent being a major investor, Tencent could still sway them in that sort of way, or sway them in the way of going, hey, we don't want anything anti-communism, or we don't want anything anti-that. You know what I mean? So while Tencent doesn't have that final say, Ubisoft does, they could still sway Ubisoft in the way of, we're a major investor. We don't want that in the game. We're investing large amounts of money into this. We don't want you to do that. We don't want that in the game. We don't want that to go against anti-communism. We don't want anti-communism in that game. We don't want that, And Ubisoft, while they still have the final say, may go, they are a major investor. It's probably best to play on their good side. That's what I'm trying to say. So yeah, now we're going to go into the next part. And the next part is pretty much what this means for us. So the full consensus, or the biggest breakdown I can give you, is what this means for us is it's good. It's good. That's really it. It's good. Let's break down why it's good. But the main reason being, Ubisoft now has the money for bigger titles. They have the money for bigger budgets. Tencent. One thing I really need to say about Tencent is I do talk a lot of shit about communism, about China, about Tencent, but really, Tencent's a no fuck around company. They know if you make a good product, it'll sell. They know that. You know what I mean? Meaning, while creatively, if Ubisoft, let's just say hypothetically, Ubisoft's making a new Assassin's Creed game, and they're about to make a really bad creative decision, Tencent can go, we know this is a bad creative decision. We know people are not going to like this. Don't do it. Now Tencent doesn't have the final say, meaning Ubisoft can technically go, no, go fuck yourself and ignore them. They're still there, and there's still someone there going, hey, you shouldn't do that. And they can still sway them in the right direction. And that's how it's good for us. You know what I mean? Tencent's there to kind of sway them in the right direction in that sort of way. Because again, Tencent's a no fuck around company. They know if you make a good game, you know, people will buy it. You know what I mean? And on top of that, Tencent's also going to be investing when it comes to budgets. They're going to be putting money in when it comes to a budget for a new Assassin's Creed game. Let's just say a new Assassin's Creed game is going to cost $300 million. Then Tencent can put $100 million to $150 million into that game. And that means bigger budget titles, which bigger budget titles doesn't specifically mean a better game, but it is a good step in the right direction. It's an okay step in the right direction. But, yeah, this is really this is good for us, you know what I mean? I guess the only downside, the only bad side about this entire thing is also actually Tencent's investment into the company and Tencent's now ownership and Tencent's now sway in Ubisoft. Their sway in this new subsidiary, and it could mean censorship to a certain extent. Censorship being in the way of you know, if a new Tom Clancy games, I used this as an example earlier, but you know, if it goes against communism or it looks bad for communism, then they could go, hey, we don't want that in there. And again, while Ubisoft does have the final say, they're in a position where they can sway Ubisoft to go, well, maybe we shouldn't put that into the game because Tencent doesn't like it, or maybe we shouldn't do that because Tencent doesn't like it. So it could lead to censorship to a certain extent, but it'll also lead to higher budgets and better games ultimately. So from my standpoint, I think it's a good trade-off. So we get more censorship, maybe more censorship, depending on how Ubisoft goes around it. Ubisoft could just tell Tencent to go fuck themselves, but I don't think they're going to do that. So my ultimate consensus is we'll have more censorship, most likely, in these major titles. Again, this doesn't mean the entirety of Ubisoft. This just means potentially censorship in their major franchises. It could mean partial censorship, but realistically, the good outweighs the bad. So realistically, we could get partial censorship, but what we get in return is higher budgets and potentially Tencent really pulling Ubisoft out of their own ass, you know what I mean? Making sure they're on a right path and making sure that the product they're releasing will be good to the fans and will be a good product. Because again, Tencent's a no fuck around company. They know if a game is good, people will buy it. You know what I mean? Meaning if Ubisoft's about to make a really bad decision, Tencent can kind of sway them in the right direction. So ultimately, I think for the consumer, this is going to be good. Again, it'll probably affect censorship to a certain extent, potentially, but I think it'll ultimately do more good than bad. So that's what I think. That's ultimately what I think that means for us. Now, finally, what do I think? What do I think about this ultimately? And I like it. I think this is a good decision. I do dunk on Tencent a lot. Chinese company, communism bad, America the greatest. But ultimately, I think this is a good decision. Again, I said this earlier, but Tencent is a no fuck around company. They don't fuck around. They don't fuck around. They're not a fuck around company. You know what I mean? They know what they're doing. You know what I mean? They understand. So I think from my standpoint, I like this. I think this is a good decision. And I honestly think this might potentially save, well, Ubisoft's major franchises. We don't know what this means for the other 19,000 developers. So what was actually officially said was we don't know how this is actually going to affect development teams is still unknown, meaning we don't know what this means for the other 20,000 people who work at Ubisoft. But ultimately, for this new subsidiary and these major franchises with Tom Clancy's Far Cry and Assassin's Creed, it's going to be good for the major franchises. It's going to be good for what companies and what employees have been moved to this new subsidiary. It's going to be good for this new subsidiary. It's going to be good for Ubisoft's major franchises. This is good for the consumer. This is good for us. This is good for me. This is good for Ubisoft. This is a good decision. I like it. That's all I have to say. And yeah, that's pretty much it. You know, the only thing I did actually forget to mention was that Tencent's a really good planner, which is another pro reason why Tencent acquisition into this new subsidiary is a good thing. Being Tencent's an amazing planner. They're good at planning when projects should release between each other and all that stuff. They're good at planning. That's what you need to know. So yeah, if you like the video, you got this far, maybe you consider liking, subbing. I'm not usually like begging, but you know, I want to know. Yeah. And yeah, all good. Again, I want to know how y'all feel about Tencent and Ubisoft making this new subsidiary, investing. What do you think this means for Ubisoft? I've already explained what I think it means. Again, I think this is very pro-consumer, but I'm gonna let you go. I'm gonna let y'all go. Y'all go. I'll go. I don't know. But yeah, all good. Yeah, that's it. All good. Bye.